Welcome to the tale of Tab Archaeology. Well, tale, right now you are staring at a black screen. You are probably expecting a presentation of one kind or another to start at any minute, explaining the aims, methods and results of Tab Archaeology. We might get to that later, but for now we are stuck here, a black screen with eerie wind sounds in the background. Don't you just love the blackness of it, the unborn experience so to speak, not knowing what will happen next? It's very much like the beginning of an excavation. We expect mysteries to be down there in the dark soil, but we don't know yet what we will find. The darkness in the wake of adventure, exploration and discovery, which is so important for archaeology and for creativity, which is the celebration of humanity's imperfections. But now let's start this tale of Tab Archaeology, and let's do something about this black screen. I'm an archaeologist for about 8 years now. I used to be a metal detectorist, so I think it was about 2014. We were having some beers and some laughs with some colleagues, and we were jokingly discussing pull tabs and what would happen if we make an official topology of pull tabs. But then friends and colleagues started to pick up the idea and started to send me pull tabs which they had found all over Europe. And suddenly the small 9 types Dutch topology was no longer big enough. So then I put the thing on Facebook and it had an amazing 16,000 people's views. What if you can motivate all these people to join in a community of pull tab enthusiasts and send me their data about pull tabs all over the globe? Let's pause the video right here. Can we build a pull tab archaeology community with enthusiasts all over the globe? This was and is indeed the challenge laid down by the Tab Archaeology project in a nutshell. Can we build an engaged, all-inclusive community and crowdsource a worldwide reference collection and typology of ring pools together? But why pull tabs and where did this all start? You have just seen the protagonist of this tale, let's call him John. Here we see John in a picture from 2014 in a cultural resource management project in the Dutch village of Bergse Hoek. Here we see his team in that same project, working hard in shitty conditions, trying to preserve the heritage of a local community, a 17th century village harbour. Despite the muddy excavation scenery, the lack of time and money to do things properly, things are all well here. Like most archaeologists, John here absolutely loved doing fieldwork. Getting up before sunrise, driving through half the country every morning to be down here in the trenches, eating rain and snow for breakfast and taking pride in a simple coup, anticipating great excavation results. John loved every second of it, but at the same time something was missing and unrest was growing in John's heart. An estimate of 95% of all archaeology in the Netherlands is contract archaeology. Great archaeological work is done, but usually ends up in grey literature, science papers, or is deposited in archives invisible for the public. In most archaeology in the Netherlands, there is always talk about the public, but the public itself is nowhere to be found. Just take a second look at this site. This is the center of a village over 400 years old. However, the local historical association was not even asked to help with the excavation. In fact, there is a fence around the site, which later would become a blinded fence, so people couldn't even see what was going on anymore. One can enjoy archaeology in a museum, but one is not allowed to practice it. The archaeological experience is an exclusive experience. So the romantic version of this story would be that John, our hero, accepts the challenge and shouts, "I've had enough," throws down his shovel and starts his quest. But a hero John was not. Dependent on his small CRM job as he was, he did not have enough courage to just call it quits. Until he was fired at the end of the previous recession. And now John had few alternatives. He had to take up the challenge to find a richer, more inclusive, more public and more creative archaeology. Why more creative? Because John here had an intuition that creativity is where archaeology has the potential to create a sustainable connection with the public.
Hey, Mr. Tab Archaeology. I'm David Gauntlet. You got that from my book, Making is Connecting.
Indeed, Professor Gauntlet. Your book was very important for John in his quest to create Tab Archaeology. It's also the reason why I, as your narrator, chose this visual story above a traditional talking head conference presentation. I promise we will get back to this.
Oh, okay then. Carry on.
So, back to our story. Here we see the uphill road of Tab Archaeology. And here we see John collect his first pull tab ever, the metaphorical start of his quest. And off he goes, onto his journey to create a different archaeology. Along the path there were many perils, but also many helpers and sources of wisdom, which all came together in what was later to become Tab Archaeology. We cannot discuss them all, but let's look at a few people he met. Here we go. The first question is, of course, why choose pull tabs? At the end of the 1940s, Ernie Fraze from Ohio started a small engineering company called Dayton Reliable Tool and Manufacturing Company. The story goes that Ernie, although usually very busy as an entrepreneur, did love to go outdoor barbecuing. On one of those occasions he forgot his church key, a device to push holes in beer cans needed to open them at the time. Frustrated as he was that he had to open all his beer cans using his car bumper, he invented the pull tab, or ring pull in the UK, a device to easily open your beer can or beverage can by means of a tear strip. Here we see one of the first official drawings of this invention, probably drawn by one of his lead designers, Omar Brown. The first pull tabs on beer cans were sold in 1962. Today, 60 years later, the annual production of pull tabs for beverage cans is greater than 100 billion a year in the United States alone. But back to our story. When John started his quest to design a more inclusive archaeology, he realized that accessibility was going to be key. Contrary to CRM archaeology or academic archaeology, a more inclusive archaeology should be one that is accessible for everybody, not limited by law or regulations. The pull tab immediately sprung to mind as a cool object to research, as it is absolutely ubiquitous. If you go looking around a park bench, a schoolyard, a beach or a market square, you will find pull tabs. And this is true for most busy places on the entire planet. Also important is that archaeologists in general do not give a shit about pull tabs. Some colleagues in John's environment even got angry when he proposed pull tabs to be of archaeological relevance. That's when John became certain about it. Pull tabs were his topic. So John had found his topic to create a more accessible archaeology and went further up the road to seek more wisdom. At one point in the road, at a slight bend, John saw a wise man with a long beard sitting beside a tree. In one hand he was holding a shard of Roman pottery, in the other a Swedish beer can, and besides him on the ground was for some mysterious reason a portable speaker set with a microphone. The wise man's gaze shifted thoughtfully from the pottery to the beer can and back. When John approached and asked him what he was doing, the man suddenly raised his head, boldly and vividly looked John straight in the eyes and said, "In the name of Eros, can't you see? I'm reconstructing archaeology." For this was Michael Shanks of Stanford University. John was quite intrigued and decided to pop his question. "How can I make a better archaeology?" "I will not say much, but I will tell you this," Mr. Shanks said. "Archaeology is not just the study of the past. It is also performance and craft. A better archaeology should challenge the separation of reasoning and execution that characterizes the field today." And with that, he sent John on his way. Years would go by. Up to this day, John does not really understand what Mr. Shanks meant with reconstructing archaeology, but the word craft stuck to him like glue. Might it be that the doing of archaeology is equally important as the outcome? Years went by, and John met many people. One of them was William Rache of Tucson University. Another one was William Schroeder from Montana University. I might tell you more about these encounters another time. Winter came, and John was still on his quest, but did not know how to proceed. He was mightily confused. He locked himself up in his house, and at one point he could not think of anything else but pull tabs. Mr. Shanks had put him on a track, but how was he going to make this craft of archaeology available to everybody? It was at this time that John got a visit from an old friend.
And so one of the first things that has to happen before we can say what you were recommending about, well, can't people just understand that there are people at different stages of development? That's a very, very important item to understand. And as a matter of fact, I would think it's one of the most important things that humanity has to do, is to come to that kind of understanding. And so that's going to take this realization that development continues throughout your life. and that one of the things that you want to have available to you is the knowledge that wherever you are when you graduate high school or college or wherever it is, you can keep growing.
To cut a long story short, when old friend Ken Wilber comes over for dinner, conversations tend to get quite lengthy. What Ken tried to explain to John over and over again is that cognitive development in people, groups and institutions evolves along lines of development, and that the
confusing aspects about development is that when you really sit down and start studying the stages that people go through, that you really do start to understand some very specific kinds of distinguishing features between these different stages of development and how they're going to see the world.
Exactly. Bringing cognitive development theory back to archaeology, John started to realize the importance of this point. Archaeologists are trained to think in a highly specific and conservationist ontology and epistemology. Often, they expect lay people to step into that same complexity or worldview when they start practicing archaeology, as if saying, "Of course you are welcome in archaeology, but you have to do it our way." John understood, at least in theory, that if archaeologists want to make their craft attractive to everybody, one has to address archaeological practice on the level connected to everyone's specific worldview. It is not archaeologists who have the right to decide what is archaeology and what is not. It's people themselves. Knowledge development and craft occur at every stage of development, not just the academic stage. We are now approaching the climax of this story, but we have one key encounter to tackle. High up on the path towards Tab Archaeology, John needed just one more little push. The argument that would make things come together.
Hello, I'm David Gauntlet. I've just finished writing a book called Making is Connecting.
Exactly where along the path John met David Gauntlet is a story which got lost in the mist of time. Some people suggest he never really met him, but that Gauntlet came to him in a dream. Whatever the real story is, when David met John, eventually he said the following things.
So, first of all, why do I say making is connecting? I say making is connecting for 3 key reasons. Number 1, making is connecting because you have to connect things together, materials or ideas or both, to create something new. Number 2, making is connecting because acts of creativity usually involve at some point a social dimension, connecting people together. And number 3, I say making is connecting because through making things and sharing them in the world, we increase our engagement and connection with our social and physical environments.
The interesting thing is that Gauntlet wrote a book about the vital importance of things like knitting, woodworking and vlogging. What has this to do with archaeology? But John instantly recognized that Gauntlet had put him back on the track with the argument that wise man Shanks had already predicted at the beginning. Let's review what we heard Gauntlet say a minute ago and bring this directly in relation to the craft of archaeology. According to Gauntlet, making, or in other words, creativity, is a relational process of connecting because it is working with materials, which you also do in archaeology when you collect, sort, clean, restore, name and date things and combine it with ideas like questions, theory and narrative. Creativity involves a social dimension, which in archaeology relates to exploring, discovery and excavation together and sharing and discussing the results in social groups. And where creativity involves a process of engagement with our social and physical environment, this might be at the very core of what archaeologists have always done. The craft of archaeology has all aspects of a creative experience, and the results of a creative process are, according to Gauntlet, fulfillment, connection and joy, to which John would like to add a deeper insight in oneself and one's environment, to knowledge and even wisdom. This stopped John right in his tracks. It brought him back to the black screen of the beginning of this story, where everything seems possible. And it gave him some time to let it all sink in. John suddenly realized that contemporary archaeologists focusing on academic rigor from a modernist and scientific perspective might be over-focusing on the outcome of archaeology as a rational quest for knowledge, and forgot about the process of archaeology as a heritage practice. The challenge for Tab Archaeology was now evident. Turn this all upside down. In 2018, the Tab Archaeology project launched and tried to do exactly that. Everybody can participate. I wanted to create a pool tab topology of the world, but of course I would never succeed on my own, so I asked you guys to help me, and that's when amazing things started happening. I had one envelope, actually from Annemiek Jonker, and this was so amazing to me. You guys actually started to do it, and I don't mean just 1 or 2 people, no, just everybody. And then Marjolein Kok made a database we could use to store our data. And then I found pool tabs in Amsterdam, well, of course. And then karate people started to send me pool tabs. And we had pool tab expert meetings all over the globe. This is Jack from Hayes, my nephew, who sent me pool tabs. And this is Alex, who sent me over 1,500 pool tabs. This is a pool tab from Australia sent by Dr. James Flexner. Oh yes, and I went into the State Archaeology Museum and secretly deposited pool tabs there. These are pool tabs from China, from Cambodia and Middle East. And then we started making t-shirts. And then people started wearing those t-shirts like Ivar, Nick and Jos from Baak. And this is Nadine Conradi. And here's Nicolas Baudry in Canada. And this is, I don't know what this is. And here's the pool tab family of the year 220. And then we had this excellent interview with the Atlas Obscura team. And very amazing. William Schroeder, pool tab archaeologist from Seattle, came to visit me all the way in the Netherlands. And my dad started taking pictures of all the pool tabs we found together. I did pool tab research in scary caves underground. I went to Saxion Applied University, and together we counted 1,500 pool tabs in one day. And it must be said very clearly, if you guys hadn't supported me, I would probably never have created the topology. And then there were pool tabs and more pool tabs and more pool tabs. What started out as a one-person idea grew out to a worldwide project with now over 3,000 pool tabs in our database from 32 countries and close to 100 different types, all thanks to you, the people who helped gathering it. We are very close of reaching our goal of creating a worldwide topology of pool tabs, and in fact, the whole journey of the last 2 years has left me speechless. Look at this, people. Please look at this. We really pulled it off. We created the first worldwide archaeological reference collection and topology. Using Facebook, Instagram and YouTube vlogging as its main strategy, Pool Tab Archaeology sets people in motion to start with doing something, just start from creativity, and assumes it is archaeological practice, no matter what you do. In this way, the Pool Tab Archaeology project created its first globally crowdsourced archaeological typology in 2020. Of course, from the point of view of an academic pursuit, much can be improved. Putting craft, social interaction, accessibility and engagement above knowledge does come with a price. But even though there is less clear methods, difficulties in analysis of the data, and the word context has a different meaning in Pool Tab Archaeology than usual, Pool Tab Archaeology has unmistakably collected new data about our recent past, which is awaiting an opportunity for publication. But the real question is, does that really make a difference? As usual, more work needs to be done, but John here is confident and ready. In fact, he's already planning his next adventure. Thank you very much for joining him in his tale of Pool Tab Archaeology. If you'd like to get in touch, go to pooltabarchaeology.com. And if you'd like to support this project, find us on Patreon.